So looking a little bit deeper into intensive properties, here are some 4 common intensive properties that we look at in the chemistry lab. One of them is the melting point. Now, melting point, and you're going to see something called boiling point as we move through the course. They're both kind of the same thing in terms of what they're looking at. Melting point is the point at which a solid turns into a liquid. So it's whatever the temperature is that it starts melting. Boiling point is going from a liquid to a gas. So it's the temperature at which a liquid starts to boil. And these are not dependent on the amount of substance. So if I had a pot of water, it doesn't matter how much water is in the pot, it's still going to boil at the same temperature. Doesn't matter how much ice I have, it's still going to melt at the same temperature. So the amount has nothing to do with the measurement of that property. Density is another example, and that's one that we focused on the last 2 weeks, last week and this week. Density is not dependent on the amount of the substance. So lead's density is going to be the same regardless if I have a huge sheet of lead or a huge block of lead, or if I'm dealing with tiny ground fine lead shavings. Temperature is also another very popular one that we deal with a lot in the lab. Again, temperature of the substance is not going to change based off the amount. It is intensive. And color. So again, color is a characteristic of matter based off the identity of the substance, not the amount. So all of these have to do with the identity of matter versus the amount of matter. So the melting point and the density and the temperature and the color and any other intensive properties that we measure are not going to change based off of the amount. It's going to change based off the identity. So copper's melting point is going to be the same regardless of how much of it I have. Density of copper is going to be the same regardless of how much of it I have and temperature and color. So none of that changes with the amount. It only changes with the identity. So when I change the type of matter I'm dealing with, I'm going to change those values. But intensive properties are really important in the chemistry lab because they're properties that we can use to identify an unknown substance. So where we can't use extensive properties to determine an unknown, we can use the intensive properties to determine the unknown.